Hey there guys, P here, Top Deck Cards and Games, and we're going to do our little twist on Throwback Thursday, if you will. So what I have here in front of me is the original Rain Dance deck. This was one of the more competitive decks around the era of the first generation, with your base sets, Jungle Fossil, and Team Rocket. Now, this particular build here is a minor twist as to how I personally wanted it built, and very similar to how I had originally built back good old 17 years ago. So, Pokemon wise, it's pretty simple. We're running Blastoises, base set Blastoise, which had the Pokemon power Rain Dance, akin to your abilities. And this was pretty simple. As often as you like during your turn, before you attack, you may attach one water energy card to one of your water Pokemon. This power can't be used if Blastoise is asleep, confused, or paralyzed. So, Pokepowers are definitely very synonymous to abilities at the time, and a lot of them got shut off by special conditions. We also have Tecton, a one-off of Dark Blastoise, having just raw damage output. I mean, its first attack, Hydro Cannon for 2 water energies, did 30 damage plus 20 more for each water energy attached to Dark Blastoise, but not used to pay for the attack. And you could not add more than 40 damage this way. So they kind of, it was very similar to like Keldeo EX and stuff like that, but it was very limited back then as to how it is today. You could attach the 2 water energies, you do the 30 damage, but then you'd have to attach more to do additional. So, ideal situation with that card is you'd have 4 water energies attached to deal 70 damage. Numbers were a little bit different back then. For example, the Rain Dance Blastoise here is only capping at 100 HP as a stage 2. And even more lower is Dark Blastoise, who's only rocking 70 HP for a stage 2. So, numbers were a lot smaller then, so the capability of doing 70 damage for 4 energy was huge around those times. Blastoise himself, he has an attack that's very similar to Dark Blastoise's Hydro Cannon, except it's 3 water energy for 40 damage plus 10 more, and you cannot add more than 20 damage this way. So with regular Blastoise, for 5 water energy in total, you could do 60 damage, which was okay. It was fairly decent. If you got any return, like the general returns back then were 1 energy per 10 damage as far as any Pokemon went. So if you did any more than that, you were doing good. Also teched in, we have a basic Gyarados line. Basic Gyarados is pretty straightforward, with its first attack at 3 water energy doing 50 damage, really good returns, and 4 energy to do 40 damage, and a coin flip for paralysis, which is pretty excellent. It can potentially lock your opponent out from being able to attack, and there wasn't as much switching effects at the time, so having an active being able to retreat is a little difficult. That's the standard Pokemon line. Energy wise, there's 16 energy in this deck. If you look at that compared to today's standards, seems a little high, but we needed more room for energies to be able to draw into them, since during this era you did a lot more drawing, more so than searching. So with that being said, let's have a gander at our trainer list. Now, during this era, it was just trainer cards. There was no distinguishing between them. There were no items, there were no stadiums, there were no tools or supporters. Everything was essentially just trainers, which were treated like how today's items are. You could play trainer cards as often as you liked during your turn. And some of these, whew, some of these were really, really strong. In fact, a lot of these cards, if they ever were reprinted, were given an A-Spec status or a supporter status to limit the amount that you could use during your turn. For good reason. And certain cards we just never saw again, also for very good reasons. And we're going to go over all of those. There we go. So the beef, definitely Professor Oak here. We are running a full play set, and Professor Oak works exactly like how nowadays Professor Juniper / Professor Sycamore work. You discarded your hand, and you drew 7 cards. Simple as that. But because these are treated as essentially items, you could play all of your Professor Oaks in one turn. We have Bill. Allowed you to draw 2 cards. Very simple, very useful. These two guys right here were definitely some really strong items. Computer Search, which you just discarded 2 cards from your hand when you played this, and you could search your deck for any one card. Did not matter what it was, any one card. Item Finder, you discarded 2 cards from your hand to search your discard pile for any trainer card you wanted. So I could use 4 Professor Oaks, use an Item Finder, get another one back, use it again. You went through your deck very quickly. Pokemon Breeder, which is essentially today's rare candy, which allowed you to put a Stage 2 evolution card from your hand onto the matching basic Pokemon, but you can only play it when you would be allowed to evolve that Pokemon. So that Pokemon still has to be out for a turn in order to even play it, but it allowed you to skip the Stage 1 entirely. Like I said, much like what Rare Candy does. These 2 cards down here are the cards that just never really saw the light of day again, and for very good reason. We had Energy Removal, which was simply choose 1 energy card attached to one of your opponent's Pokemon and discard it. Just straight up, like no coin flip check or anything, it was, that energy was gone. And then we had Super Energy Removal, which forced you to discard 1 energy card attached to one of your Pokemon to choose one of your opponent's Pokemon, and they had to discard 2 energy off that Pokemon. The only real energy acceleration back during those times was this Rain Dance Blastoise, so playing up against anything else, Energy Removal and Super Energy Removal were very destructive to them. Here we have Gust of Wind, which we did see a effective reprint of it with the original Pokemon Catcher, which is simple: choose one of your opponent's bench Pokemon and switch it with his or her active Pokemon. Just like Pokemon Catcher before they did the errata to make it a coin flip. I guess it's more synonymous to Lysander, but without limited use. And we do have Switch. Switch is one of the eternal reprinted cards, very handy. Allows you to switch one of your bench with one of your active. Just like that, and we have 1 full heal, which just removed all special conditions. So, that's the beef of the deck. And how they were played back then, you had a lot of ability to just keep drawing cards non-stop. And it was both a blessing and a burden at the same time, because you could easily draw just about your entire deck in one turn if you had the right combination of cards. But there were no EXs or anything like that during gameplay. You had to win by either clearing your opponent's board or taking 6 prizes, 1 at a time. So the Pokemon themselves were a little on the slow side, but going through your deck was fast. So you had to be very careful as to when you played your draw cards when you did, because you need to outlast and not deck yourself out in order to take the 6 prizes in order to win. So it was a little different type of playing back then. And it's definitely fun, and while I enjoyed them, I think it's kind of unanimously agreed across the board that a lot of these trainer cards were way too strong. And it's definitely good that we're now finally starting to see a lot of these older cards reprinted, but a lot more limited to allow for more strategic gameplay. So, hope you liked this video. If you did, please, like the video, leave a comment, subscribe to our YouTube page for more of this stuff. Hopefully I get to do more of these in the future, because it's a lot of fun revisiting these old decks. Also check us out on Facebook. You can see when we're open, what kind of deals we got going on, what events, everything like that. So, with that being said, y'all have a good one.